Imagine waking up one morning, stepping outside to grab some bread, and finding your neighbour absolutely losing it, dancing in the street like her life depends on it. Except it actually does. Welcome to Strasbourg, 1518, where hundreds of people literally dance themselves to death. No music, no party, just pure sweaty apocalypse cardio. If you like your history served with equal parts chaos, contagion, and choreography, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because things are about to get very, very weird. It all started in the middle of a brutal July heatwave. Strasbourg was baking under the sun, the streets reeking of sweat, sewage, and desperation. And then a woman named Frau Trophäa stepped out into the street and started dancing. Not like cute little jig while you cook dinner dancing. No, this woman was committed. Arms flailing, feet pounding, spinning like her shoes were on fire. At first her neighbours laughed. Who wouldn't? Maybe she'd had a little too much mead. Maybe she was possessed by the spirit of Beyoncé centuries too early. But then the hours started stacking up. 1 hour turned into 2. Daylight faded into night, and she was still going. People started watching, whispering, wondering if they were witnessing a miracle or a curse. By day 3, Frau Trophäa was drenched in sweat, trembling, clearly in pain, but she still couldn't stop. She collapsed, twitched, then got right back up and kept moving. Either she was possessed, or she had discovered pre-workout 500 years early. And then it spread. Within a week, dozens of people were struck with the same uncontrollable urge to dance. Within a month, over 400 people were out in the streets, flailing and stomping, like their lives were a 24-hour rave they couldn't leave. The city turned into the world's first unsolicited flash mob, except instead of going viral, everyone just died. City officials were losing their minds. The church said it was God's punishment. The physicians said it was hot blood, which in 16th century science speak basically meant, we have no idea, but it sounds medical. And their solution? They decided these poor people clearly needed to dance it out. So they built a stage, brought in musicians, and encouraged everyone to sweat out the sickness. That's right, when hundreds of people were dying from dancing, the official government plan was more dancing. Soon the streets were filled with bodies. Some were still moving, others were collapsing, twitching, or screaming for it to stop. Men, women, even children were overtaken by the same uncontrollable rhythm. Some danced until their hearts gave out. Others broke their ribs or snapped their ankles and kept going anyway. This wasn't joyful dancing, it was agony on loop. The church stepped in next. Priests carried the afflicted to the shrine of Saint Vitus, the patron saint of dance, epilepsy, and, apparently, terrible ideas. They prayed over them, sprinkled holy water, sang hymns. Some even tried bloodletting, because when in doubt, medieval medicine just removed fluids at random. But nothing worked. The dancers screamed, begged, and moved until their bodies literally gave out. Eyewitnesses reported people dropping dead mid-step. Others stumbled into rivers, too weak to climb out. For the survivors, every muscle was torn, every nerve on fire. Whatever this was, it wasn't a party. It was mass torment. So what the hell was happening? How could an entire city lose control of its body like that? Historians have wrestled with this for centuries. One of the most famous theories is that everyone accidentally tripped on some very cursed bread. Specifically, ergot fungus, which grows on damp rye. It contains compounds similar to LSD, and it can cause hallucinations, convulsions, and muscle spasms. Basically, imagine the worst acid trip of your life, except your entire town is on it, and no one can stop moving. It's a fun idea, but there's a problem. Ergot poisoning doesn't make people dance. It makes them writhe, seize, and die painfully. You wouldn't get a month-long street rave. You'd get chaos and collapse. So if it wasn't the bread, what was it? Some scholars believe it was something far more powerful: collective hysteria. Think about what life was like back then. The harvest had failed, people were starving, the plague had recently wiped out a third of the population, and everyone believed sin could literally curse your body. Guilt and fear weren't just emotions, they were diseases. Now picture one woman, Frau Trophäa, dancing uncontrollably in the street. In a deeply religious community already on edge, that's the perfect spark for mass panic. People saw her suffering and thought, oh no, that's Saint Vitus's curse. We're next. And when you believe that strongly, your body follows. One person's twitch becomes another's tremor, which becomes an epidemic. It's what psychologists now call mass psychogenic illness, a shared mind-body breakdown where belief spreads like infection. The brain said, you are cursed. The body said, "Say less." For weeks, Strasbourg looked like a music video directed by Satan. City leaders, in full panic mode, tried everything. They banned music, shut down the dancing halls they'd stupidly built, and marched the remaining dancers up into the mountains barefoot to pray at the shrine of Saint Vitus. After days of prayers, candles, and desperate repentance, the plague finally ended. No medicine, no science. Just the sheer power of belief flipping from hysteria to hope. When it was all over, dozens were dead, hundreds were broken, and the city's reputation was forever stained as the place where people danced themselves into the grave. No one could explain it. No one wanted to remember it. But word spread fast, and the legend of the dancing plague took on a life of its own. It sounds ridiculous now, but this wasn't an isolated case. There were smaller dancing manias reported across medieval Europe for centuries. In one town, a group of nuns began dancing uncontrollably and couldn't stop singing obscene songs. In another, hundreds danced in front of a church until they collapsed from exhaustion. People thought it was divine punishment. Modern science thinks it was psychological contagion. Either way, it's one of the strangest phenomena in human history. And an eerie reminder that our minds are sometimes our own worst enemies. But before we act like medieval people were uniquely ridiculous, let's be honest, humans today aren't that different. We might not collapse in the streets, but we still lose our collective minds in groups. Panic buying, mass internet outrage, weird TikTok challenges. Our species has a long tradition of catching feelings and passing them on like the flu. From fainting epidemics in Victorian schools to the laughter plague of 1962, Tanzania, history is full of psychological chain reactions, where stress and fear spiral into the absurd. The main difference? Now we do it on social media instead of in the town square. The dancing plague is just one of many times humanity has proven it's both fascinating and terrifying when our brains sync up in the wrong way. It's the ultimate reminder that belief can be deadly powerful, strong enough to make hundreds of people's hearts race, muscles convulse, and bodies move without permission. And here's the strangest part. The same psychological mechanisms that fueled the plague are still part of us. It's what makes us join trends, copy each other's emotions, and get swept up in shared panic or joy. Collective behaviour is what binds us together, and sometimes what destroys us. So maybe the dancing plague wasn't a disease or divine punishment. Maybe it was the most extreme example of what it means to be human. Our need to connect, mirror, and belong, even when it hurts us. In the end, Strasbourg recovered. Life went back to normal, or at least as normal as medieval life could be. People still went to church, still feared sin, and probably avoided dancing for a very, very long time. But the story stuck. It became legend, a warning, and a punchline all at once. The plague doctors moved on, Saint Vitus got a reputation boost, and historians spent the next 500 years trying to explain how an entire city could lose control of its body at once. The truth is, maybe there's no single explanation. Maybe it was stress, bad bread, religion, trauma. Or maybe it was just one of those perfect storms where every human weakness aligned. A moment when fear, faith, and exhaustion danced together and refused to stop. The dancing plague of 1518 remains one of history's strangest unsolved events. Maybe it was mass hysteria. Maybe it was ergot poisoning. Maybe it was divine punishment for bad rhythm. Whatever caused it, it's a reminder that humanity's greatest skill isn't logic or bravery. It's the ability to absolutely lose our collective minds in the weirdest ways imaginable. And honestly, that's why history's hot messes are always the most fun to revisit. They show us that even in our lowest, strangest, most irrational moments, we're still undeniably human. If you survived this episode without catching the boogie fever, go ahead and hit like, subscribe, and ring that bell, because next time we're diving into the royal bloodline so inbred it made their family tree look like a pretzel. Until then, stay weird, stay hydrated, and for the love of Saint Vitus, maybe sit this dance out.